A silent wind moves across the endless dunes, carrying grains of sand that have been shifting here for centuries. The desert seems empty, lifeless, untouched. But beneath these rolling, golden waves lies something extraordinary, something the world wasn't supposed to remember. For almost 100 years, a forgotten American town slept under this sand. Every house, every road, every memory, buried so deep that many believed it had been erased forever. Yet the desert has a strange way of preserving the past, protecting it, hiding it, and then revealing it when it chooses. But here is the real mystery. In the early recordings of travelers, a phrase appears again and again. A town that vanished without a goodbye. But why would an entire town vanish without a single warning? Let's go deeper. Why did an entire community disappear? What force was so powerful that it buried a living town under mountains of sand? And why did the people never return, even though their homes still stood beneath the dunes? This question has puzzled explorers for decades, and tonight, we uncover the truth. But the answer, the real answer, is far more unsettling than a storm, or drought, or wind. Before we uncover what really happened, we go back to the first days of this town. Because stories like these never begin with destruction. They begin with hope. What if the beginning of this town already held the clues to its end? Over a century ago, long before highways carved across the desert, a small group of settlers arrived in this empty land. There was nothing here except heat, silence, and a horizon that never seemed to end. To most people, this place was the edge of nowhere. But to those settlers, it was the beginning of everything. They found traces of underground water, a small spring hidden beneath rocks. It was enough to build a life, enough to plant roots, enough to start a town. Wooden houses rose from the sand like small islands. A general store, a blacksmith, a schoolhouse with painted windows. People traveled miles just to join this new community in the middle of the desert. And slowly, a town was born, a town full of promise, opportunity, and warmth. Old photos show smiling families in front of simple houses, children running barefoot across dusty ground, and lanterns glowing at night like tiny stars. Life wasn't perfect, nothing in the desert is, but the people were united. They believed they had conquered the land. But the desert does not like to be conquered. It watches, it waits, and then it takes. But what was the first sign that the desert had begun its revenge? The first sign came in the form of unusual winds. Settlers described the wind as angry, sharp, unpredictable, carrying more sand than usual. At first, no one thought much of it. Desert winds were common, but these winds were different. They carved strange patterns in the ground. They pushed dunes closer to homes. They covered paths overnight. One morning, residents woke up and found the front steps of their homes buried. By evening, the sand had climbed halfway up their doors. But the town fought back. People cleared the sand, shoveled it away, pushed it back toward the desert. And for a while they won. But the desert was only testing them. What happens when nature stops warning you and starts attacking? Months later, the winds returned, stronger, louder, as if the desert had grown impatient. Sand filled the streets, covered the gardens, drowned the water well, and suffocated the spring that the entire town depended on. A traveler passing through wrote, "It was as if the desert had opened its mouth and started swallowing the town whole." Families tried to stay strong, but every day became a battle. Doors jammed shut from sand pressure. Windows cracked under weight. Lanterns blew out. Children had to climb over dunes just to reach the schoolhouse. And then, one night changed everything. A massive sandstorm struck without warning. No one saw it coming. The sky turned black. The air became thick and gritty. People couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Houses shook under the force. Roofs groaned. Some say the storm lasted minutes. Others say it lasted hours. But when the wind finally stopped, the town was gone. Not destroyed, not abandoned, just buried. Only the tops of buildings were visible, like the last breaths of a drowning town. If your entire town was buried overnight, would you stay and fight or run and survive? At sunrise, the settlers gathered, silent and defeated. They had fought the desert for years, but now the desert had won. with no water and homes filled knee-deep with sand. The people made a painful decision. They packed what little they could carry and walked away, leaving behind everything they had built. No farewell letters, no markers, no final celebration, just a quiet walk into the horizon. The desert swallowed the rest. But why didn't anyone ever return? What were they afraid of? For decades after, the town disappeared from maps. Travelers passed by the area without knowing history slept beneath their feet. Wind buried the remaining structures deeper and deeper until not even wood beams were visible. But the desert, unpredictable as always, eventually began revealing its secrets. Nearly 100 years later, shifting dunes began uncovering fragments of the past. A roof edge, a broken window frame, porches, staircases, bricks sunburnt by time. Explorers arrived and were stunned by what they saw. A ghost town, perfectly preserved beneath layers of sand. Some houses still had wallpaper. Some had rusted lanterns hanging in corners. One even had children's toys half buried in dust, frozen in time, untouched for a century. It was as if the families had stepped out for a moment and simply never returned. But what could force an entire town to leave behind their homes, untouched? And that brings us back to the question from the beginning. Why? Why would people never come back to rebuild? Why did they leave a town that was still standing beneath the dunes? Storms do not last forever. Sand can be cleared. Other desert towns survived harsh conditions. So what was different about this one? The answer lies in the journals found in the last remaining house, one that sat deeper underground, protected from sunlight. The final entries describe something strange. A sound, a low, continuous hum coming from beneath the ground. The settlers wrote that the sound grew louder each night, especially after sandstorms. No animal was known to make it. No machine existed in their town. Some believed it was echoing wind. Others thought it was the earth shifting. But one line appears again and again in their writing. The desert is alive. To them, this wasn't just a natural disaster. They believed the land itself rejected their presence, pushing them out, burying their town as a warning. But was this fear, or something truly unexplainable happening beneath their feet? Was it superstition fueled by fear? Or was it something real, an environmental phenomenon no one understood at the time? Today, scientists believe underground air pockets collapsing caused the sound. Historians say the settlers misinterpreted natural acoustics. But the families who lived there believed something else entirely. They believed the desert wanted its land back. Maybe that's why they never returned. Not because they couldn't, but because they felt they weren't supposed to. But if the desert rejected them, why is it revealing the town now? Standing here now, looking at half-buried houses emerging from sand, one thing becomes clear. The desert does not destroy quickly. It destroys slowly, patiently, until nothing remains but silence. But silence isn't emptiness. Silence is memory. Every grain of sand carries a piece of a life once lived here. Every dune hides a story that almost disappeared forever. And yet, here it is, rising again for the world to see. The ghost town buried under sand for 100 years may be quiet, but it speaks. It whispers of hope, struggle, loss, and survival. It asks us a final question. If a town is buried, is it truly gone? Or does it become part of the desert forever, living on in the wind that once defeated it? Maybe that's the real mystery, not why the town vanished, but why the desert chose to reveal it again. And perhaps, the answer is simple. Some stories are too powerful to stay buried. So what other forgotten towns are still hiding beneath the sands, waiting to be found?